Welcome back to the Company of the Cat. Hi. So this is the first upload of the year. It is about a character that we do not talk about enough as a fandom, and when we do, the conversation takes some weird turns. This video idea came to me while on Reddit. There was a discussion on the Euron is Daario theory, and even though this theory is bonkers, I am sorry if you subscribe to it. That doesn't change the fact that it's a meme theory for a reason. Let's be honest here. But it made me reread some Daario passages, and now I do have some ideas about him. So thank you, random person on the internet, because without you fighting for your life about Daario being Euron, I wouldn't have this idea. Thanks. Before we move on to Daario, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Daario Naharis is a Daenerys sellsword whom we meet in A Storm of Swords. He is one of the captains of the Stormcrows, a mercenary company hired to defend the Yunkai against Daenerys Targaryen forces during her campaign in Slaver's Bay. During a parley, Daenerys attempted to sway the Stormcrows to her side by offering them gold and plunder. However, her proposal was rejected by Pendal, another captain among the Stormcrows. As the company discussed the possibility of breaking their contact with Yunkai, Daario, won over by Daenerys, killed Pendal and Salor the Bald. He presented their heads to Daenerys as evidence of the Stormcrows' alliance to her cause, and Daario and her Stormcrows played a crucial role in Daenerys' victory in the battle near Yunkai, and Daario assumed a leadership role guiding the Targaryen forces during the march to Meereen. During the march and after the siege of Meereen, we see him attempt to woo Dany. In A Dance with Dragons, Daenerys dispatches Daario as an ambassador to the Lázarine and trusted him with the task of reopening the land trade routes between Lázar and Meereen. Leading the Stormcrows, he engaged in a battle on the Kizai Pass against the Long Lances. Daario was also very displeased when the Green Grays proposed to Daenerys to marry his Derzolorak to foster peace. He also suggested an ASoIaF wedding and the slaughter of the Great Masters gathered at the wedding feast. This suggestion infuriated Daenerys, and she assigned the Stormcrows the responsibility of patrolling the Yunki's hinterlands and safeguarding the Kizai Pass. During the second siege of Meereen, Daario sustained a crossbow injury to his temple while avoiding capture. He claimed to have killed a sergeant planning to defect to the Yunkai. Daenerys, having a crush on Daario, began a romantic relationship with him upon his return, causing tension between them and Barristan, especially after Daario publicly kissed her, and because he referred to Barristan as her grandfather. Additionally, we saw Quentyn Martell and his companions, disguised as sellswords, join Daario's Stormcrows. Upon the revelation of their true identities, Daario became distrustful and bad-tempered. His behavior escalated after Daenerys reluctantly agreed to wed Hisdar. Becoming increasingly unpredictable, Daario, along with Crolio, Hero, Joko, and Hisdar's sister and two cousins, were handed over as hostages to the Yunkai. After the events on Daznak's Pit, the Yunkai demanded the execution of Rhaegal and Viserion before releasing the hostages. Internal conflicts within Meereen intensified as Barristan and Skahaz conspired against Hisdar. Barristan advocated for Daario's rescue from the Yunkai, while Safebait suggested letting Daario perish to allow the Stormcrows to choose a new leader. With Daario still in Yunki's custody, command of the Stormcrows was passed on to the Widower and Jokyn. And here is everything we know about Daario Naharis so far. From the moment Daario was introduced to us, people have been certain that he's not who he says he is. Apart from the meme theories about him, Euron, Enslash, or Benjen, there are countless theories here and there about him being a spy, an immortal, a faceless man, and many, many more. I couldn't find it, but I see people say that George Martin said in a fan meets last interview or something that there is more to Daario than what meets the eye. And of course lines like, "I have seen how false men are, very few are worthy of trust, and Daario Naharis is not one of them. Even his beard wears false colors." And, "Shall I bring their heads to you? I will if you command it. One is bald, and two have braids, and one dyes his beard 4 different colors. What spy would wear such a beard, I ask you?" Do not help his case. The first time Daario appears in the scene, it is pointed out how flashy he is. Daario Naharis was flamboyant even for a Tyrosi. His beard was cut into 3 prongs and dyed blue, the same color as his eyes and the curly hair that fell upon his collar. His pointed mustachios were painted gold. His clothes were all shades of yellow, a foam of Miri's lace, the color of butter spilled from his collar and cuffs. His doublet was sewn with brass medallions in the shape of dandelions, and ornamental gold works crawled up his high leather boots to his thighs. Gloves of soft yellow suede were tucked into a belt of gilded rings, and his fingernails were enameled blue. We also have another great outfit consisting of striped pantaloons, purple leather high boots, a white silk shirt, a vest of golden rings, and of course, let's not forget his golden tooth. His hair and beard also change colors from time to time. The first time we meet him, he had blue hair with gold whiskers. After they took Meereen, he dyed his beard and hair a deep rich purple, and in A Dance with Dragon, his beard was purple, his moustaches gold, and his hair parts of both, with him returning back to blue at some point. Daario is a very interesting character, in my opinion, mostly because of what he contributes to the story. He has a very similar role to Ygritte, even though people often do not see it, and if they do, they don't want to admit it, because Ygritte was a fan favorite, and Daario isn't for some reason that I don't understand, not gonna lie. However, that doesn't change the fact that the role in the narrative is very, very similar. Daario is to Dany what Ygritte is to Jon. They make them forget their duties, and they are the human equivalents of what Dany and Jon really want but can't have. They symbolize that many times what we want is not always honorable. Jon forgets his vows, something that not only is considered shameful by the Watts and by his family, but by him as well, as that kind of behavior represents everything negative people say about bastards. With Daario, Daenerys comes face to face with all the things she wants to avoid, abandoning her people, becoming a butcher queen, indulging in all her desires without thinking of the consequences. But again, Daario, like Ygritte, who also wanted and tried very hard to convince Jon to throw his vows and honor out of the window, is not simply that. Yes, it is obvious he started fooling around with her because he saw the possibilities, but it's also easy to see that he started to have some sort of feelings for her. He forsook alliances, he is generous in bed, wants to be with her, and is jealous of other men. If he didn't have feelings for her at all, then he wouldn't care about the wedding. He could have found a way to gain something from it as well, considering that Daenerys wanted to continue having sex with him. The reason we as fandom have an issue with Daario is George Martin's decisions and nothing else. The ages are weird as fuck, even though we do not know Daario's age exactly. It is painful to admit sometimes, but George often is weird with the couples in his writings. Jon and Ygritte are not that great age-wise either, but for some reason we completely dismiss it, because, well, he is a man. But it is also obvious that they are not written to point out how problematic these kinds of pairings are, but as legit couples. We just don't want to admit it, we don't need to support it, but denying it and shake it up baby twist and shout doesn't really change the narrative. Daario as a character is the classic bad boy love interest who is there mostly to advance Dany's character. He is handsome, bold, suave, fun to be around, and a great lover. However, Daario is dangerous, enjoys violence, is quick to anger, is reckless. He is greedy, exploits people, and seeks power. But he also has fun and enjoys his time with her. Daario serves as the voice on Daenerys' shoulders that says, just burn them, my queen, and get it over with. They won't understand words, so why negotiate in the first place? Narratively wise, I don't think there needs to be more to Daario than it appears. His role as a character has a clear purpose in Dany's storyline, and it has already been served. We finally see her thinking that, yes, Daario might be right and violence is necessary sometimes, in her last A Dance with Dragons chapter. I can easily envision Daario having a similar ending to Ygritte, with him dying during the upcoming conflict between the slavers and Dany and her people. After all, Daario, like Ygritte, is one thing that really has a hold on her. He is the only person that Dany thinks could make her leave everything behind and live a free life with no responsibilities, similar to how Jon was thinking about how he could abandon the Watch and have a family and kids under different circumstances. Their deaths to me seem kind of inevitable and something that must happen. Watching what Daario does and how he acts, the weirdest thing about him is actually his outer appearance. Daario is the Racallio Ryndoon of this timeline, but make it sellsword. Racallio Ryndoon was a Tyrosi captain/general who declared himself king of the Narrow Sea. He was described as dyeing his hair and beard in vibrant shades of purple with orange streaks. He is similarly flamboyant to Daario and even sported a similar hairstyle. He was described as being fond of drinks and pleasure in general, having a penchant for cross-dressing and a fondness for sweet scents like lavender and rosewater. Daario may not be fond of drag, but he is similarly a fan of clothes and accessorizing and elaborate garments in general. Racallio was a formidable force in battle apparently, displaying ambidextrous swordsmanship. Hailing from unknown origins, he harbored a deep hatred for slavery, suggesting a potential past as a slave. He was introduced in Fire and Blood, where he was involved in the War for the Stepstones and subsequent conflicts, including clashes with Prince Daemon Targaryen and the Daughters' War. Ryndoon is the only other Tyrosi that has been described as flamboyant even for a Tyrosi, and wasn't hinged as well. Not in the same way Daario is unhinged, but he was similarly eccentric and chaotic to Daario, and even had connections with Targaryens and other Westerosi Valyrians. At the same time, he too was a good captain and warrior, and they even sported a similar hair color. Daario, to me, is a similar case to Racallio, a very eccentric, interesting, and hinged chaotic character who just takes every opportunity in life and does not have a problem with the sellsword's way of succeeding in it. His life is battle and war, he likes to lead and loves the violence and the pleasures of life. Daario's whole shtick is that he is impulsive, quick to anger, reckless, greedy, and looks out for his best interests in most situations. There isn't any clue about him being any other person than just Daario, character-wise, and there is no underlying stuff about him. He is a guy who saw an opportunity, an attractive young queen with dragons, and said, you know what? Yes. Obviously yes. Daario might be a character with more to him than what meets the eye, but I really do not see him having a connection to major plot lines. If Daario has deliberately hidden part of himself, then I believe it is something that has to do with his past and appearance and nothing else. I have an idea why there are so many what the fuck theories about him, but I will address that at the end of the video. All in all, for the most part, Daario is a very straightforward character in my opinion. With all that out of the way though, Daario still is, let's say, not exactly a suspicious character, but there are some weird bits about him here and there that makes me raise my eyebrows. With the most important being that Daario has Valyrian traits, something that I personally don't see people comment on enough. There are many descriptions of his eyes, and they are always either in italics or followed by a weird description. His beard was cut into 3 prongs and dyed blue, the same color as his eyes, and the curly hair that fell to his collar. This is the first time his eyes are mentioned, and later Dany seems very much into them. She thought of Daario, if ever there was a man who could rape a woman with his eyes. To be sure, she was just as guilty. Dany found herself stealing looks at the Tyrosi when her captain came to council, and sometimes at night she remembered the way his gold tooth glittered when he smiled. That and his eyes, his bright blue eyes. Daario had planted himself a whole new wardrobe in Meereen, and to match it, he had redyed his trident beard and curly hair a deep rich purple. It made his eyes look almost purple too, as if he were some lost Valyrian. If I want Daario, I need only to say so. She lay with his legs entangled in her own. His eyes looked almost purple today. The old knight neither liked nor trusted Daario, she knew. Even so, he had answered gallantly, "There is no woman more lovely than your grace. Only a blind man could believe otherwise." And Daario Naharis was not blind. No, she thought. His eyes are a deep blue, almost purple, and his gold tooth gleams when he smiles for me. I could ignore it, if it were mentioned just once when he dyed his hair purple. But she mentioned it again. The only hair Daario isn't dyeing is his body hair, from what I understand. That is described as fine and so faint that he looks smooth, almost hairless. The dude is very fair-haired. The fact that he redyes his hair so often is kind of suspicious on its own, because we have never had a line about his actual hair color or his roots being visible, and most importantly, because we do have another person dyeing his hair blue, so his eyes do not look purple and to cover his white hair. In general, whenever we had a secret Valyrian, as readers, we were always aware of how they covered these features, shaving heads and a hat that covered his eyes, in Egg's case, and dyeing their hair in cases like young Reeves, Daemon Blackfyres II, and Arya Targaryens. This beardless boy could have any maiden in the Seven Kingdoms, blue hair or no. Those eyes of his would melt them. Like his sire, young Reeve had blue eyes, but where the father's were pale blue, the son's were dark. By lamplight they turned black, and in the light of dusk they seemed purple. Daario dyeing his hair and facial hair to cover Valyrian traits doesn't sound that weird to me. He refreshes the hair dye frequently and uses precisely the hair colors we know would affect the way his eye color appears. And we have more than one remark about his eyes appearing purple, and one where he is described as a lost Valyrian. Daario's eyes are a deep blue color, indigo that at times looked almost purple, very similar to young Reeves and Egg's. "Can I have a sword to round them off with?" Egg asked. He had blue eyes, Dangso, very dark, almost purple. His bald head made them seem huge somehow. Both the hair dyes we know he uses are described as rich and bold in color, and in similar colors as his eyes. And not to mention that if you want to cover your eye color and hair color, then what Daario is doing is spot on. There is no way someone will notice unless they are ogling at him like Dany. Because let's be honest, with the stuff he is wearing and these colors on his head, the last thing worth noticing is his eyes. This beardless boy could have any maiden in the Seven Kingdoms, blue hair or no. These eyes of his would melt them. Which is pretty much what is going on with Daenerys and Daario, these eyes of his. So from what I understand, Daario is blonde with indigo blue eyes, almost purple. A color we know those of Valyrian descent tend to have. I would add that the golden streaks and moustache could be another indication of very light hair. But we do not know how good the dyes in this universe are. For example, blue covers even red hair, as we saw. So we do not know if the golden color, that is a medium warm yellowish from what I understand, can cover much darker hair, or what George Martin knows about dyes in general. From experience, this light of a color, there is no freaking way it's gonna sit on darker hair in real life. In universe though, we can't be sure. That being said, he looks almost hairless, meaning he is fairly blonde, and his eyes are definitely an indigo color that has purple in it. Does that mean that Daario is secretly the real Viserys Targaryen who was swapped? Hell no. No, obviously not. He's a Saradeh. Jokes aside, let's be realistic here. Apart from the fact that all these theories are otinane, we are in the 5th book. Daario was introduced in the 3rd one, and considering all his similarities narratively wise with Ygritte, I do not see him surviving past the Battle of Fire. He cannot be that important. It wouldn't make much sense. If indeed George said there is more to Daario than meets the eye line, which I couldn't find, so help a sister out please and put a citation down below, then there must be something that would be important in the ASOS plotline, and that's all. So what could it be? Daario is a co-captain of the Stormcrows when we meet him, meaning Daario had been with the company for quite some time up to that point. You don't become captain in a week. Many theories I have seen about him dismiss not only the timeline of the story, but Daario's story as well, even if we never really saw it. If the dude was a captain, he must have been with them long enough for this to happen. So I do believe that Daario was indeed a sellsword, who saw a very good opportunity and took it. If indeed Daario is there to do more than advancing Dany's character, I'm gonna say that he might have dragon blood. Before you start shouting at your screen, not another secret Targaryen theory for fuck's sake, I don't think it matters that much, and I will explain why. First and foremost, as we established in the previous section, from what I understand, Daario has Valyrian traits. Secondly, Daario Naharis is Tyrosi. The Blackfires and the Targaryens had ties to Tyros and a presence there as well. Daemon Blackfire was married to Rohan of Tyros and had 7 sons and at least 2 daughters. After the first Blackfire rebellion and the death of Daemon and his 2 eldest sons, Aegon Rivers gathered Daemon's surviving kids and his wife and fled to Tyros, where they remained for years, and eventually Aegon was crowned in Tyros as King of the Iron Throne. We also know about marriages with Targaryens as well. Valar and later Daeron married Kiera of Tyros. The marriage with Valar didn't produce children, but Kiera and Daeron had one daughter that we do not know much about, but she was alive at least until 233 AC. She was also in the direct line of succession, but got passed over because she was considered simple-minded. All these marriages had female lines, which we know nothing about. Youngriff allegedly dyes his hair blue to honor his late Tyrosi mother, and when Daenerys was younger, she and Viserys spent some time in Tyros when they were wandering from place to place, thus she speaks High Valyrian with a Tyrosi accent. The remaining Valyrians do have strong ties to the city and were present over there as well. We do not have many instances of Daario interacting with the dragons, except when she gave Dany the heads of the other captains, where he looked very chill with them, something that even Daenerys pointed out. Little Daario unpended the sack, and the heads of Salor the Bald and Pendant Nagezen spilled out upon her carpets. My gifts to the Dragon Queen. Viserion sniffed the blood leaking from Pendant's neck and let loose a gout of flame that took the dead man full in the face, blackening and blistering his bloodless cheeks. Drogon and Rhaegal stared at the smell of roasted meat. You did this? Dany asked quizzily. None other. If your dragons discomforted Daario Naharis, he hid it well. For all the mind he paid them, they might have been 3 kittens playing with a mouse. Daario is also the person who pushes her to embrace the fire and blood the most. Daario tossed away the pear stem. Carthin have milk in their veins. Let them see your dragons, and they'll run. How many men did you lose in the fighting? 9, said Daario. But a dozen of the long lances decided they would sooner be stormcrows than corpses, so we came out 3 ahead. I told them they would live longer fighting with your dragons than against them, and they saw the wisdom in my words. I have waited so long for him to come back, and I sent him away. He would make a monster of me, she whispered, the Butcher Queen. But then she thought of Drogon far away, and the dragons in the pit. There is blood on my hands too, and on my heart. We are not so different, Daario and I. We are both monsters. Get the heads of all the noble houses out their pyramids on next pretext, Daario had said. The dragons wore their fire and blood. Daario here represents the Targaryens that indeed embrace their fire and blood side immediately, solving the problem violently, quickly, and without thinking of the consequences. Daario is always suggesting what Viserys would have done. He is not obsessed, but he is definitely thinking of using the dragons way more than Daenerys does. A reason why he even likes Daenerys this much is the dragons. Something that neither he hides nor Dany dismisses, she knows it very well. I swore that I should wed Hizdahr zo Loraq if he gave me 90 days of peace, but now... I wanted you for the first time that I saw you, but you were a sellsword, fickle, treacherous. You boasted that you had 100 women. 100? Daario chuckled through his purple beard. I lied, sweet queen. It was 1,000, but never once a dragon. We also have Daenerys thinking of him as a candidate for the third year of the dragon again more than once. If you were grown, she told Drogon, scratching him between the horns, I'll fly you over the walls and melt the harpy down to slag. But it would be years before her dragons were large enough to ride. And when they are, who shall ride them? The dragon has 3 heads, but I have only one. She thought of Daario, if ever there was a man who could rape a woman with his eyes. The dragon has 3 heads, but I have only one, she thought of Daario. Could I love Daario? What would it mean if I took him to my bed? Would that make him one of the heads of the dragon? Daario might whisper words of word when the two of them were as one, but she knew it was the dragon queen he loved. Daario has everything a Dragonseed in the story would have. The Valyrian traits, connection to a free city we know Targaryens and Blackfires had a strong presence, the fascination with the dragons that he doesn't seem to be afraid of, and George Martin even has Dany thinking of him as a candidate for one of the heads of the dragon. Would it be that strange if a person who probably knows he has dragon blood from a grandparent or something approached Daenerys who hatched more than one dragon? In my mind, that seems very plausible. Ben Plum says a bunch of stuff that are obviously not true, but he indeed has some dragon blood from some generations ago, and the dragons do indeed like him a lot. If you were in that universe and knew that you had a relative with dragon blood, wouldn't you go to the person with the dragons? What if once in a million you would claim one? I would do it. And I think a person like Daario would 100% do it. If the guy was a sellsword from Tyros, with Valyrian traits, and knew that someone in his family might have had a connection to the Blackfires or the Targaryens, even a seemingly unimportant one, let's say his mother or grandfather or whatever, was a bastard with dragon blood. Why not try it? Because I think this is exactly what happened. He was a sellsword, and when the rumors about the dragon started to circulate, like everyone else, he got curious, and when the opportunity arose to see for himself, he did it. Something that Daenerys also said. They will come, they would want to see the dragons. So of course the moment Daenerys proposed an alliance, he accepted because why not? Pretty much this is my theory about Daario. It matches his personality, creates some stakes, explains his outer appearance and his move, and in general, it doesn't sound, at least to me, that convoluted or something that would need chapters on top of chapters to completely unfold and resolve. What would that mean for the upcoming book though? Daario is one of the people Daenerys thinks might betray her. The voices were growing louder, she realized, and it seems her heart was slowing, and even her breath. 3 treasons, will you know? Once for blood, and once for gold, and once for love. It had been so long, she had said to Sir Barristan just yesterday. What if Daario has betrayed me and gone over to my enemies? 3 treasons, will you know? Other nights she tossed in her bed, imagining that he betrayed her, as he had once betrayed his fellow captains in the Stormcrows. He brought me their heads. What if he had taken the company back to Yunkai? To sell her for a pot of gold. He will be safer as a hostage. My captain was not made for peace. Dany could not risk his cutting down Brown Ben Plum, making mock of Hizdahr before the court, provoking the Yunkai, or otherwise upsetting the agreement that she had given up so much to win. Daario was war and woo. Henceforth she might keep him out of her bed, out of her heart, and out of her. If he did not betray her, he would master her. She did not know which one of these feared the most. During the Battle of Fire, we will see Viserion and Rhaegal out in the open, 100%. Unlike Drogon, these 2 dragons are unclaimed and pissed because they were locked up. They will for sure cause trouble. We know that they are more accepting of people with dragon blood. This at least she could rely on. Or so she hoped. And Brown Ben Plum as well, solid Ben, with his grey-white hair and weathered face, so beloved of her dragons. And Daario beside him, glittering in gold. Sir Grandfather knows how to count. The second son have gone over to the Yunkai. Daario turned his head and spat. That's for Brown Ben Plum. When next I see his ugly face, I will open him from throat to groin and rip out his black heart. Dany tried to speak and found no words. She remembered Ben's face, and the last time she had seen it. It was a warm face, a face I trusted. Dark skin and white hair, the broken nose and the wrinkles at the corner of his eyes. Even the dragons had been fond of old Brown Ben, who liked to boast that he had a drop of dragon blood himself. 3 treasons, will you know. One's for gold, and one's for blood, and one's for love. Was Plum the third treason or the second? Ben, Daario, and the third betrayal are mentioned quite often together. And after Ben's turn, we also see Daario being very pissed and swearing that he will kill him and take revenge. If Daario were here, this meal would end in blood. No promised peace could ever have persuaded her captain to permit Brown Ben Plum to stroll back into Meereen and live alive. Daenerys and her dragons trusting and liking Ben is something that I think will come in play in the Battle of Fire as well, and having on the opposite side of Ben another person that might be okay with the dragons as well will seriously raise the stakes of the battle. I'm not suggesting that they will claim the dragons, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't find it that weird or unbelievable if one dragon was lost in ASoS and not in Westeros. We will have all dragons and more specifically Viserion, who is way too cool with Ben, out in the open. I can see the dragon getting pissed if Plum gets cornered by Daario, or in general if he is in danger during the battle. Her captain's bowed and left her with her handmaidens and her dragons. But as Brown Ben was leaving, Viserion spread his pale white wings and flapped lazily at his head. One of the wings buffeted the sellsword in his face. The white dragon landed awkwardly, with one foot on the man's head and one on his shoulder, shrieked and flew off again. "He likes you, Ben," said Dany. "And well he might," Brown Ben laughed. "I have me a drop of the dragon blood myself, you know." If Daario fights with Ben, because I think these two will come face to face, since Daario was sent as a hostage to not find and attack Ben. Daario is thinking about it and was also the one who came with the news. And Viserion gets pissed. I can see Daario killing both of them, and indeed being the third betrayal for love. He will betray Dany because he will kill one of her children, but will also be partially for the love he has for her. Because it is obvious that Daario does have feelings for her. He is jealous, he is throwing tantrums, and he even was salty that he wouldn't marry him and even said no to sex because he was pissed with the visitors and stuff. Yes, he is greedy, wants the queen and puts his ego and anger over many things, but he also very much has more than the hots for her. Otherwise, being so possessive and throwing tantrums is kinda weird and dumb. Daario killing one of the dragons because of his love for Dany, his role during the fight, and even dying during the fight, I think would be a very interesting place to go with both his characters, and I will explain why in the next part, where I will also explain my idea on why Daario has so many weird theories about him. Daario as a character represents every man in Daenerys' life, men she has met, men she will meet, and the men she never met. He symbolizes Drogo, Viserys, Yangreef, Euron, and even Hisdar, and Daenerys to some extent. And this is the reason I think there are so many different identity theories about him. He looks like a character that was crafted to represent all these people and what each one of them symbolizes. Daario is dangerous, cruel, and possessive like Drogo. The Tyrosi sellsword was not a good man. No one needed to tell her that. Under the smiles and the jests, he was dangerous, even cruel. Salor and Prendal had woken one morning as his partners. That very next night, he had given her their heads. Khal Drogo could be cruel as well, and there was never a man more dangerous. He had come to love him all the same. Daario represents bloodthirst and violence, like Aerys and Viserys burning and embracing fire and blood. But Daario is right. I shouldn't have banished him. I should have kept him. Or I should have killed him. She played at being a queen, yet sometimes she felt like a scared little girl. Viserys always said what a doll I was. Was he truly mad? She closed the book. She could still recall Ser Jorah, if she wished, or send Daario to kill him. He symbolizes Euron, the thirst for power and the lengths someone would go to achieve it. He wants to marry her and rule together, embrace the ultimate power the dragons can offer, for them only. Dany loved the way his gold tooth gleamed when he grinned. She loved the fine hair on his chest. She loved the strength in his arms, the sound of his laughter, the way he would always look into her eyes and say her names as he slid his cock inside her. "You are beautiful," she blurted as she watched him, donned his riding boots and laced them up. Some days he let her do that for him, but not today, it seemed. That's done with too. Not beautiful enough to marry. What have I done? She thought, handling her empty bed. I have waited so long for him to come back, and I sent him away. He would make a monster of me, she whispered, a butcher queen. Daario is attractive, persuasive, and charming, and he can be a monster like Euron is. He is the visual representation of Dany's fear of what a person can become, but they also recognize her power as well. He is Hisdar, and most importantly Yangreef, the people who just want to use her. They just want what she can offer them, her dragons and her name, and they undermine her and her abilities. All these powers are also visually represented, and this is the biggest reason for the theories, I think. His connection with the Stormcrows is a direct parallel to Euron Crow's Eye, the first storm and the last. as well as his hooked Greyjoy nose, which give him a bird-like appearance. He has the Valyrian traits and the Tyrosi connections like young Griff, with his deep blue, almost purple eyes, who can melt every girl, no matter the blue hair, and his long moustaches and arak reminiscent of Drogo. And that brings me to the Battle of Fire again. Him killing Viserion, and also dying there, would be such a cool turn of events, I think. Viserion, like its namesake, who trusted easily, the one who didn't fly on its own but rode on Dany's shoulders while traveling to Karth, will never reach Westeros because Daenerys' lover would kill him. I don't know, I think it's a very interesting parallel. And Daario being the one who would betray her because he indeed has feelings for her is also a great plot point, I think. Daario killing her dragon and consequently betraying her while also dying at the end is the last step for Dany's character to break from all the men in her life who somehow were controlling her and the ones who will try to control her. She will finally understand that neither husband, lover, or family truly defines who you are. She will look back without being lost, and she will understand what everything she went through meant. How she let all those people control her and continue to control her even after their deaths. Daario's death is also the moment Daenerys will fly. Like she started to break free from her brother after her wedding, and like she hatched the eggs after Drogo's death. Daario's death also symbolizes the death of all the terrifying ideas he tried to persuade Daenerys to embrace. The Red Wedding, the burning, and the unnecessary killing. Sadly, in a war, you will embrace violence whether you want it or not, whether you try to prevent it or not. It is the sad truth of war. Leaders have blood on their hands. On that, Daario was correct. But that doesn't mean that every one of these leaders are cruel and want to abuse their power. His death means the death of fear and of manipulation. This is it pretty much. These are my thoughts on Daario, his past and his future. Daario is a great character, from a literary standpoint if you ask me. He is an amazing way of moving forward Daenerys' character, is fun to read, and can provide a great climactic moment for the subplot he is involved in. His role enriches the narrative, he matters to the storyline because he is affecting one of our main heroes, and I don't think that he needs to be more to not be boring or bland or one note, because he really isn't. He is already a great character. I would love to hear your takes and theories about Daario in the comments as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one. Bye!